My name is Riley Carter. That night, while my family raised their drinks and smiled like the world was perfect, I slipped upstairs to the loft bedroom, the one with the slanted ceiling and the window overlooking the valley. I closed the door softly, heart slamming against my ribs. I opened my laptop. The screen lit my face blue in the dark. The documents were ready. An irrevocable trust, drafted months ago by Grandpa's trusted attorney in Boulder. One final digital signature. I hovered the cursor over confirm. My thumb trembled. This wasn't just paperwork. This was drawing a permanent line between me and the people who raised me. I clicked. The confirmation email pinged instantly, assets transferred. Cabin. 40 acres of forested land. Investment accounts built quietly over 50 years, now worth millions thanks to the explosion in Rocky Mountain tourism. All locked in the trust. Sole trustee, Riley Carter. No one else could touch it. Not my parents. Not my brother. Not my uncle. I exhaled so hard it almost hurt. Relief flooded in like cold mountain air after a long hike, but it carried grief too. Sharp. Heavy. Because I knew what came next. Downstairs, they were still laughing. My dad, Richard, booming voice telling some old fishing story. Mom, Laura, refilling wine glasses with that practiced smile. My younger brother Ethan, 17, broad-shouldered, football star grin, already sneaking another beer, bragging about his upcoming college scouts. Uncle Derek leaning against the stone fireplace, eyes flicking toward the windows every time someone mentioned how crazy property prices are getting up here. They had no idea the ground had just shifted beneath them. If you've ever had to protect something precious from the very people who should have your back, if you felt that slow, sick realization that family love comes with strings attached, stick around. This story gets darker before it gets satisfying. But first, let's go back. Because this didn't start on my birthday. It started when I was a kid, learning the hard truth that in my house, attention was a currency, and I was always short. I was 13 the first time it really hit me. I'd just won first place in the statewide science competition in Denver. Not some small school thing, this was big. Full-ride scholarship offered to the top STEM academy in the state. I ran into the house clutching the thick envelope, cheeks burning with pride. Mom. Dad. Look at this. Mom was on the phone, mid-sentence with a client. She glanced over, smiled quick. That's wonderful, honey. Then back to her call. Dad was on the couch, remote in hand, watching Ethan's highlight reel from last week's game. He nodded once. Good job, kiddo. Eyes never left the screen. By dinner, the conversation had completely flipped. Ethan had gotten into a shoving match at practice. Nothing huge, just teenage testosterone, but coach benched him for 2 games. Suddenly the house was in full crisis mode. Mom called the coach twice. Dad drove to the school to smooth things over. They hired a private trainer so Ethan wouldn't fall behind. They even threw a little support night with his teammates, pizza, video games, everyone telling him how unfair it was. My scholarship letter? It sat on the kitchen counter until I moved it myself. I framed it alone in my room and hung it above my desk. A quiet reminder that my wins were expected. Ethan's mistakes were events. That hurt settled deep. Not loud anger. Quiet. Cold. Then came the bike incident the next year. Ethan was 14, tearing around the neighborhood on the expensive mountain bike Dad bought him after a winning season. He clipped a parked car, deep scratch down the door, dented fender. Easily $3,000 in repairs. When I was 10 and accidentally knocked over Grandma's antique crystal vase while helping clean, I got grounded for a month. Lectures every night about responsibility. You have to think, Riley. Things cost money. People work hard. But Ethan? Mom and Dad drove straight to the neighbor's house with apologies and a check. Paid in full on the spot. Then they took him to the bike shop and upgraded him to a better model, carbon frame, hydraulic brakes. He learned his lesson, Dad said, clapping Ethan on the back. Boys get into scrapes. Important thing is owning up. I watched from the porch steps. Stomach twisting. It wasn't jealousy. It was understanding. I was held to a higher standard, perfect, silent, self-fixing. Ethan got grace. Cushions. Second chances wrapped in love. Those 2 moments changed me. I stopped sharing good news. Buried disappointments. Built walls. Relied only on myself. But the cabin, that place was my exception. My refuge. Every summer we'd pile into the SUV and drive the winding 3 hours from Denver up into the mountains. The moment we turned onto the gravel road, city noise faded. Replaced by wind in the pines, the crunch of tires, the smell of warm earth. Grandpa Elias would be waiting on the porch, toolbox open. Got a sagging beam on the deck, Riley. Grab the level. We'd work side by side, measuring twice, cutting once. Sweat mixing with sawdust. He'd teach without preaching, do it right the first time. Saves heartache later. Grandma Maggie in the kitchen, apron on, radio tuned to classic country. We'd pick wild blueberries or dig potatoes from her garden plot. Chop onions until tears streamed, laughing about it. Simmer venison stew for hours, the aroma filling every corner. At the scarred oak table, she'd ask gentle questions that actually listened. When their health declined, I started coming alone more. Drove up to help with doctor appointments in Estes, carried groceries up the steep path, read mail when eyes failed. They never demanded. Just thanked me with small things, an extra blanket on cold nights, a squeeze of the hand. One fall evening, fire low in the hearth, Grandpa spoke plainly. Your dad chases shiny things, boats, trucks, credit he can't pay. Derek's always one bad flip from broke. Ethan's got heart, but no discipline yet. He looked at me. This place, the land, the money we've saved, it's yours when you're of age. Not because you're better. Because you'll keep it standing. Those words planted the seed. Then the boom hit. Tourism exploded. Luxury cabins renting for insane nightly rates. Developers eyeing every ridge. Property values doubled in 2 years. Family visits changed. No more casual weekends. Now it was family meetings with real estate printouts. Uncle Derek pacing the property lines. Dad mentioning taxes. Mom talking vacations they deserved. Ethan dreaming aloud about his share buying a lifted truck. They spoke like the cabin was already communal property. Like Grandma and Grandpa's final wishes were just suggestions. I listened. Smiled. Said nothing. But inside, the plan locked in. The birthday night I signed the trust, that was the point of no return. What happened the next morning would break everything wide open. Those childhood moments didn't explode into rage. They didn't need to. They just accumulated. Like snow piling on a roof until the beams groan. I learned early that asking for fairness was like shouting into the wind, pointless. So I stopped asking. I started protecting. The cabin became more than a getaway. It was proof that someone, somewhere, saw me clearly. Every time we drove up from Denver, the highway climbing through switchbacks, the city shrinking in the rearview, something inside me loosened. The air changed first, thinner, cleaner, scented with resin and earth. Gravel crunched under the tires as we pulled up the long drive. Grandpa Elias would already be outside, leaning on his cane, waving slow. Took you long enough, kid. We'd unload groceries, then get to work. He'd point to whatever needed fixing, a loose porch rail, a gutter clogged with needles, a section of fence leaning from winter snow. I'd hand him tools from the old red metal box in the shed, screwdrivers worn smooth, hammers with chipped handles. He moved slower each year, joints stiff, but his hands were still sure. Measure twice, cut once, he'd mutter, watching me mark the board. When the piece fit perfect, he'd give that single nod, the one worth more than any trophy. Afternoons we split wood. Him running the chainsaw in short bursts, me hauling rounds to the splitting block. The maul felt heavy at first, but he showed me the rhythm. Plant feet wide, breathe in, swing from the hips, let gravity and the grain do the rest. Crack. The log opened clean. Stack. Repeat. Sweat stung my eyes, arms burned, but every neat row under the lean-to felt like building something permanent. Grandma Maggie waited indoors. Kitchen warm, wood stove ticking. She'd have coffee going, strong, black, just how I liked it after a morning outside. We'd shell peas or shuck corn at the table, radio low in the background. She told stories of meeting Grandpa during the recession of '81, both working double shifts, saving every penny for weekends here. We built this place one board at a time, she'd say, pressing dough into pie tins. Same way you build a life. When I was old enough to drive, I started coming alone more often. Especially after Grandpa's first bad fall. I'd bring groceries up the steep path, help him to the recliner, read the mail when his glasses weren't enough. Grandma's memory started fading, small things at first, then bigger. I'd sit with her on the porch swing, blanket over our knees, while she asked the same questions twice. I never minded repeating answers. She always listened like it was the first time. One late October night, leaves crunching underfoot outside, fire popping low in the hearth, Grandpa spoke the words that changed the trajectory of everything. We were alone. Grandma already asleep. He stared into the flames for a long minute before he said it. Your father's always had expensive tastes. Boats he doesn't use. Trucks he trades in every 2 years. Debt follows him like a shadow. Derek's the same, big plans, short follow-through. Flips houses he can't finish. Ethan, kid's got talent on the field, but life's gonna hit him harder than any linebacker if he doesn't learn consequences. He turned to me then. Eyes steady. This place, the cabin, the acres, the accounts we'd built slow and careful, it's going to you, Riley. When you're legal age. Not split. Not shared. You. I felt the weight settle instantly. Not joy. Responsibility. Why me? I asked quietly. Because you understand holding something steady. You don't chase flash. You fix what's broken. You stay. He paused. Family isn't always blood doing right by each other. Sometimes it's protecting what matters from the ones who won't. Those words lodged deep. Like a key turning in a lock I didn't know was there. After that, I started noticing the shift in everyone else. The tourism boom hit hard. Estes Park turned into a hotspot, cabins renting for $600 a night in peak season. New luxury developments creeping up ridges. Property values doubled, then tripled. Suddenly the cabin wasn't just Grandma and Grandpa's old place. It was an asset. Uncle Derek showed up first with the change in tone. He'd walk the property lines with a laser measure, muttering about acreage and viewsheds. This spot's prime, Riley. Short-term rental goldmine. Add a deck extension, hot tub, maybe a bunkhouse loft. Airbnb could clear 6 figures a year easy. Dad started echoing it on phone calls I overheard. Taxes are killing us. Roof's got another winter or 2 at best. Maintenance alone is a full-time job. Mom would sigh over coffee. We could finally take that cruise we've talked about since you kids were little. Or help Ethan with college without loans crushing him. Ethan, lounging on the couch with his phone, would grin. If we sell, I want first dibs on my cut. Lifted Tacoma, blacked out, big tires. Sick off-road setup. They laughed like it was already decided. Like the conversations were just logistics. No one asked how I felt about selling the garden Grandma tended for 40 years. Or the porch rail Grandpa carved by hand. Or the quiet evenings when the only sound was wind and fire. I smiled. Nodded. Said things like interesting idea or we'll see. Inside, something hardened into steel. I contacted Mr. Harlan Brooks the next week, Grandpa's attorney since the 90s. Quiet office in Boulder, bookshelves floor to ceiling, view of the Flatirons. He explained the irrevocable trust in plain English. Once funded and signed at 18, the assets were removed from my personal estate. Protected from claims, creditors, even family pressure. Colorado law allowed it fully, no court approval needed. But understand, he said, leaning forward, this is permanent. Your family may feel betrayed. Holidays could get quiet. Phone calls might stop. You ready for that kind of fallout? I thought of Christmases past, Ethan and me stringing lights on the tree in Denver, Mom laughing as Dad pretended to be Santa. Road trips to the cabin, all 4 of us singing off-key to classic rock. Rare moments when we felt like a unit. The ache was real. But so was the memory of every overlooked win. Every excused mistake that wasn't mine. Every casual assumption that what was mine was theirs to divide. I drove back up the canyon that afternoon. Snow flurries starting. Pulled over at an overlook. Engine off. Silence pressed in heavy. Tears came fast, hot, angry, grieving. Was I destroying what little family we had left? Or was I finally choosing myself? By dawn the next morning, sitting alone at the scarred oak table with coffee going cold, clarity arrived. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just certain. I went back to Boulder the following day. Hand didn't shake when I signed. Relief hit first, clean, sharp. Then sorrow. Deep. For bridges that might burn. Mr. Brooks shook my hand. Takes real courage to draw that line. Driving home through the foothills, mountains rising gold in the late light, I felt something new settle in my chest. Not peace yet. But power. They still had no idea. But the next morning after my birthday, they came for what they thought was already theirs. And everything broke open. The days after I signed the trust felt strangely quiet. Not peaceful quiet. The kind of quiet before lightning cracks the sky. I spent most of my time at the cabin now. Mornings I'd walk the property lines alone, boots crunching frost-kissed pine needles, breath fogging in the sharp air. I'd checked the garden plot Grandma had tended for decades, pulled weeds, turned soil, planted the last of her heirloom seed packets she'd labeled in her neat handwriting. Tomatoes, beans, wildflowers that drew hummingbirds in summer. Every row I tended felt like keeping a promise. Afternoons were for maintenance. The porch roof had a few soft spots from years of heavy snow. I climbed the extension ladder Grandpa kept in the shed, pried up weathered shingles, nailed down new ones, each hammer strike ringing clear and final. The rhythm steadied me. Sweat cooled on my skin in the high-altitude breeze. When the last nail sank home, I sat on the newly patched section, legs dangling over the edge, looking out at the valley. Mist rising off the river far below. Peak sharp against a pale sky. It was mine to protect. Not theirs to cash out. But the pressure was building. Texts from Mom started light. "How's the cabin? Thinking of coming up this weekend?" Then more frequent. Uncle Derek forwarded articles about explosive growth in Estes Park short-term rentals. Dad called once, casual, "Taxes are brutal this year. We should talk about options." Ethan sent a photo of a shiny new truck online with the caption, "This could be mine if we play it right, lol." I replied politely. Short. Neutral. Never committing. Then came the dinner invitation. They suggested the cabin itself, easier for everyone since you're already there most weekends. I agreed. Not because I wanted company. Because I needed to see how far the assumptions had gone. I spent the day preparing. Stocked the fridge with ribeyes from the butcher in Estes, fresh vegetables, a bottle of red wine they liked. Set the long oak table, Grandpa's pride, hand-planed from a single fallen ponderosa decades ago. Built a fire early so the stone hearth would chase the evening chill. Lights low. Everything warm. Welcoming. They arrived in convoy. Dad's SUV first, Mom carrying a bakery pie and a bottle of Cabernet. Ethan next, duffel slung over his shoulder like he planned to stay the night. Uncle Derek last, toolbox in hand, just in case something needs looking at. Conversation started easy. Surface stuff. Weather turning colder. Ethan's upcoming playoff game. Neighborhood gossip from Denver. Plates passed, grilled steaks juicy and pink in the middle, roasted root vegetables caramelized at the edges, cornbread steaming from the oven. Laughter came in waves. For a moment, it almost felt normal. I waited until dessert. Coffee poured. Pie sliced. Fire crackling steady. Then I set the hook. I leaned back in my chair, fork resting on the plate. Voice calm. Almost casual. Hypothetically, I said, what if the cabin wasn't ours anymore? Like, if it went to a conservation trust or something. No sale. No split. Just gone from the family. What would you all think? The room froze. Ethan's fork paused midair. Brow furrowed. What kind of question is that? Uncle Derek recovered fastest. Leaned forward with that salesman smile he used on flip deals. Hypothetically? Bad move. Market's hot right now. Best play is sell quick, lock in top dollar, split it clean. Everyone wins. No drama. Dad cleared his throat. Glanced at Mom. It's not realistic, but yeah, practical to liquidate. Invest smarter. Spread the risk. Mom busied herself stacking empty plates. We'd figure out something fair, she said softly. Smile tight. Eyes not meeting mine. The deflection lit something inside me. I stayed quiet. Let them talk. And they did. Derek pulled a napkin over, started sketching rough floor plans. Expand the loft into 2 extra bedrooms. Add a hot tub on the deck, tourists love that. Airbnb setup. Peak season rates could hit $700 a night easy. Ethan jumped in, excited. I could handle bookings. Manage check-ins on weekends. Make bank during summer and fall colors. Dad nodded approval. Smart. Modern kitchen upgrade, granite, stainless. Better Wi-Fi. Returns would pay for themselves in a year. Mom added, brighter paint. Open layout. Maybe some nice decor touches. Make it feel luxurious. They built on each other. Voices overlapping. Numbers flying. Nightly rates. Contractor contacts Derek knew. Tax advantages of rentals. Comparable listings on their phones, renovated cabins pulling premium prices. No one asked my opinion. No one paused to say, Riley, what do you think? It was already decided in their heads. The cabin wasn't my home. It was a family investment waiting to be cashed. I nodded along. Refilled coffee. Cleared plates. Smiled when they laughed at their own ideas. Inside? Confirmation settled heavy and cold. This wasn't nostalgia. This wasn't legacy. This was entitlement wearing concern's clothes. Later, as dishes stacked in the sink, Derek clapped my shoulder. Good thinking ahead on this, kid. We'll make it work for everybody. The words echoed hollow. I watched them drive away down the gravel road, headlights cutting through the dark pines. Taillights fading red. The fire had burned low. Embers glowing. I stood on the porch a long time, arms crossed against the chill. Stars sharp overhead. They thought they were planning the future. They had no idea the future was already locked. The next morning, they came back. Not for coffee. For everything. And that's when the mask finally slipped. Dawn broke cold and clear the morning after the dinner. Mist hung thick in the valley, turning the pines into soft gray silhouettes. I was already up, coffee brewing on the wood stove, fire stoked low. I'd barely slept. The night had replayed in loops, their easy plans, the napkin sketches, the way they spoke about our cabin like my name wasn't even on the deed anymore. Then I heard it. First the low growl of a diesel engine climbing the switchbacks. Then tires biting gravel harder than usual. Multiple vehicles. I stepped onto the porch just as the moving truck rounded the last bend, big white box van, rental logo on the side. Behind it, Dad's SUV and Uncle Derek's pickup, dust swirling in the headlights. They piled out like they owned the morning. Ethan jumped down first, thick manila envelope in hand, waving it like a trophy. Grinning wide. We got it done, Riley. Signed, notarized, filed. Everything's official now. Dad was already directing the two hired movers who climbed out of the truck cab. Start with the big stuff, the couch, dining table. Watch the porch steps, they're uneven. Mom organized cardboard boxes she'd brought, labeling them in Sharpie, kitchen, bedroom, donate. Uncle Derek supervised the ramp being lowered, joking with the crew about mountain roads being a pain. Ethan handed the envelope around proudly. I handled the notary part myself. Turned 17 last month, online forms made it easy. Mom and Dad walked me through it. They moved with practiced efficiency. Wrapping Grandpa's old leather armchair in blankets. Folding Grandma's quilts into boxes. Stacking books from the shelves. Chatter filled the clearing, where to store seasonal decor, which pieces to garage sale, timeline to clear the place before winter really hit. I stood in the doorway. Arms crossed. Watching. Not moving. Not speaking. They didn't notice at first. Then Ethan directed a mover toward the bookshelf near the fireplace. The crew paused mid-lift, eyes lifting toward the wide porch overhang. There, standing calm in a dark suit, was Mr. Harlan Brooks. Beside him, a uniformed Sevier County Sheriff's deputy, badge glinting, hand resting near his belt. Both held thick folders. Expressions neutral. Unshakable. The air changed instantly. Like the temperature dropped 10 degrees. Harlan descended the steps slowly. Voice even. Professional. I need to speak with everyone present regarding this property. Dad straightened. Smile fading fast. Who are you? Harlan Brooks, attorney for the estate trust of Riley Carter. This is Deputy Ramirez, responding to a reported attempted unlawful transfer. Ethan clutched the envelope tighter. We have paperwork. It's all legal. Filed yesterday. Harlan accepted the documents without hurry. Flipped through pages with calm efficiency. These filings are invalid. Multiple grounds. Primary issue, forged signatures and unauthorized notary certification. Records show no valid commission for the service used. The purported transferor, Riley Carter, did not execute or authorize these documents. Uncle Derek's face paled. There must be a mix-up. We followed the instructions carefully. Deputy Ramirez stepped forward. Voice flat. Authoritative. Attempting to transfer title without owner consent, particularly using fraudulent instruments, constitutes title fraud under Colorado revised statutes. This is formal notice, cease all activity immediately. No loading. No removal. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. We thought, we were just fixing things for the family. Dad's posture deflated. Voice lost its edge. Let's discuss this reasonably. No need for officials here. Harlan continued, unflinching. The cabin, surrounding acreage, and associated accounts are held in an irrevocable trust executed legally and funded prior to this attempted transfer. Riley Carter is sole trustee. Any further action risks criminal charges, felony level. Attention shifted to Ethan. The envelope now trembled in his grip. He'd signed as co-owner/transferee in bold black ink, believing the guidance from his parents made it binding. His bravado cracked. Eyes widened. Color drained from his face. I only did what they told me. I thought it was fine. Uncle Derek looked away. Muttered something about misunderstanding the process. Mom reached for Ethan instinctively, but shock froze her in place. Dad rubbed his temple. Words failing. The movers shifted awkwardly. One murmured, "We stopping?" Deputy Ramirez addressed them directly. "No loading today. This ends now. Pack up your equipment." Silence blanketed the clearing, broken only by wind moving through the pines. Ethan sank onto a nearby box. Head in hands. Shoulders hunched. The teenage confidence gone, replaced by raw, exposed vulnerability. Uncle Derek paced short steps. Calculations unraveling in real time. Dad and Mom exchanged defeated glances. Earlier certainty evaporated like morning mist. Harlan handed copies of the trust summary and cease and desist notices. Further attempts will escalate to formal complaints and law enforcement involvement. I strongly recommend consulting independent counsel, separately. Deputy Ramirez added, "We'll document the incident. Repeat visits of this nature could result in trespass charges or worse." They retreated without protest. Movers loaded their gear back into the truck. Family climbed into vehicles. Engines started. Tires reversed down the drive. Dust settled slowly. The porch stood empty again. Except for Harlan and the deputy confirming details with me. Harlan turned last. "You did the right thing. Hard as it was." I nodded. Throat tight. "Thank you." They left too. I stood alone on the porch. Coffee long cold inside. Watched the valley slowly brighten. The reversal hit deepest through Ethan. His signature, bold, proud, now evidence against him. Turning cocky plans into legal exposure. Uncle Derek's schemes dashed in daylight. Mom and Dad's justifications hollowed out completely. Pretenses stripped away. Consequences landed in real time. Legal walls held firm. Inside, something shifted. Not triumph yet. Not fully. But the weight I'd carried for years, the invisible pressure to yield, to share, to stay small, lifted just enough to breathe. The fallout was only beginning. Court papers would come next. And the silence that followed, that was the hardest part. The dust from their retreating vehicles had barely settled before the real storm began, not loud, not explosive, but steady and unrelenting. Mr. Harlan Brooks filed the countersuit within days. Allegations: attempted title fraud, intentional interference with inheritance rights, forgery of legal documents under Colorado statutes. Discovery moved fast. Subpoenas pulled emails, text threads, online search histories. Ethan's browser records showed late-night Googles for quick property transfer forms Colorado and can a minor sign real estate docs. Uncle Derek's messages coordinating the notary friend who turned out to have no active commission. Mom and Dad's joint emails discussing how to present it to Riley so she doesn't fight. Evidence stacked like cordwood. Clean. Indisputable. They hired separate lawyers, costs mounting quick. Depositions dragged over months. Uncle Derek's already shaky finances cracked wider. Creditors he'd dodged for years circled when word spread. Bankruptcy loomed, but judgments would follow anyway. The trial itself was short. Sevier County courtroom, small, wood-paneled, smelling faintly of old paper and coffee. Judge listened without interruption. Harlan presented the trust documents, time-stamped signatures, funding records. Then the fraudulent filings side by side. Defense arguments crumbled. Family misunderstanding. Good faith belief. We thought it was communal. The judge ruled decisively. In my favor. Compensatory damages covered my legal fees, every hour Harlan billed. Punitive damages added on top, meant to deter. Total burden topped 6 figures when all fees, costs, and interest settled. Payments stretched over years through garnishments and liens. Resources they once had, vacation funds, new cars, Ethan's college buffer, dried up fast. No appeals. They couldn't afford them. Contact ended completely after that. Phone numbers blocked on their end first. Then mine. Social media went private or unfollowed overnight. Holiday cards stopped arriving. Group family chats vanished without a goodbye. Not one message of regret. No apology. No accountability. Just silence. Absolute. Final. At first, the quiet hurt more than the confrontation. Nights in the cabin, fire low, I'd sit on the porch swing Grandma loved, blanket over my knees, stars sharp overhead, and feel the absence like a missing limb. I'd remember small things, Ethan and me as kids racing down the gravel drive, laughing until we couldn't breathe. Mom helping me glue a school project at 2 a.m. Dad cheering at my one middle school track meet. Rare flashes of warmth that made the fracture ache deeper. But grief isn't linear. It ebbs. And in the space it left, something else grew. Life at the cabin found its own rhythm. Mornings, tending the garden. Soil rich and dark from years of compost. I planted grandma's saved seeds, tomatoes heavy on the vine by August, beans climbing trellises I repaired myself. Harvests became simple meals, fresh salsa, roasted vegetables, bread baked in the old wood stove. Afternoons, projects. I refinished the porch rail Grandpa carved, sanded smooth, stained warm cedar. Replaced rotting deck boards. Cleared fallen limbs after winter storms. Each task felt like stewardship. Hands calloused. Back sore. Satisfaction deep. Evenings, fire in the hearth. Books from their shelves, old westerns, field guides, a worn copy of Walden. Tea steaming. No interruptions. No expectations. Just quiet that let me think. Process. Grieve what was lost while embracing what remained. Solitude revealed layers I hadn't known were there. Space to feel the years of imbalance without apology. To forgive myself for drawing the line. To understand that protecting legacy sometimes means releasing people who never valued it the same. Uncle Derek moved south eventually, rumors of construction gigs in New Mexico. Parents downsized in Denver, sold the big house, cut back noticeably. Ethan finished high school quieter than before. Football dreams dimmed. No flashy truck. No easy money. He carried the weight of his signature longer than the others. Paths diverged. No overlap. One crisp October morning, leaves blazing gold and red, I stood on the wide porch with coffee in hand. Mist lifting slow from the valley. Pines swaying gentle. Sun breaking over the ridges, painting the land in warm light. I watched it all. Unquestioned. Unshared. Peace rooted deep. Belonging solid. What I learned cuts deeper than any courtroom win. Family isn't blood alone. It's actions over time. Respect. Stewardship. Showing up without an agenda. Setting boundaries isn't rejection. It's self-respect. It clears space for real connections, ones built on mutual value, not entitlement. If you're carrying the weight of unbalanced dynamics, inheritance pressure, the slow erosion of being overlooked, know this: standing firm can lead here too. To quiet strength. Genuine autonomy. A life aligned with your own terms. The cabin still stands. Stronger for the choices made. And so do I. If this story hit home, if you've ever had to protect what's yours from the people closest to you, or set hard boundaries with family, drop your experience in the comments. I read every single one. No judgment. Just understanding. And if stories of toxic dynamics, boundary setting, and that sweet, earned justice resonate, hit subscribe. Turn on notifications. More real stories coming. Thanks for staying through the whole thing. You're not alone.